From Will Ferrell refusing to make Elf 2 because the script wasn't good enough, to Michelle Pfeiffer turning down The Silence of the Lambs for being too evil, these are the most controversial reasons for which actors refused major roles. Remember Will Ferrell's instant holiday classic Elf? Yeah, I still watch it every Christmas without fail. But the interesting thing is, when the actor got the chance to make a sequel, he turned it down. According to Ferrell, he didn't think the script was good enough and knew he couldn't bring himself to promote the film with any enthusiasm. He said that he would have to be brutally honest about it, and it wasn't like he could have said that the movie isn't very good, but he just couldn't turn down all that money. Since he decided not to do the movie, ultimately plans for a sequel were completely scrapped and it never got made. Can you guess just how much money Ferrell actually lost out on? A cool $29 million. Yep, that's the amount of money he was offered to make another film. Not unlike Ferrell, die-hard actor Bruce Willis also turned down a particularly successful film because he didn't think the central plot made any sense. The movie in question was none other than Ghost, and according to Willis, how can you have a romance with a guy who is dead? Had the actor said yes, he would have starred alongside his then-wife, the stunning Demi Moore. But Willis just didn't get the plot of the film, but also called himself a total knucklehead for saying no to the opportunity. I mean, Ghost went on to earn $218 million domestically, so I'm sure Willis has regretted his decision ever since. The role ultimately went to Patrick Swayze, which in hindsight was probably a better decision. I guess sometimes second choice for roles can work out better for certain films, which is exactly what happened with Knocked Up. Actress Katherine Heigl became a major Hollywood player after the release of the film. As good as she was in the movie, there was another actress who was courted for the part first. At the time, Anne Hathaway had rapidly risen to fame for her instant hit, The Princess Diaries. Prior to Heigl's casting, she was offered the role of Allison for Knocked Up. But in a surprising turn of events, Hathaway turned down the role because she didn't want to do an explicit birth scene. The Devil Wears Prada actress explained that having not experienced motherhood herself, she didn't know how she would have felt about giving birth in such a graphic way. The film wanted to use real footage of a woman giving birth, giving the illusion that it was the actress giving birth instead. Uncomfortable with the whole idea, she ended up saying no, and the producers went in a different direction altogether. While Hathaway may not have a lot of regrets about turning down the film, actor Denzel Washington doesn't quite feel the same way about having turned down a few key roles himself. One particular role he fully regrets not saying yes to is the lead character in Michael Clayton. Despite it being the best material he had read in a really long time, Washington turned it down because he didn't believe in a first-time director. The movie was Tony Gilroy's directorial debut, so the safe house actor didn't entirely believe the writer behind the Bourne movies could also be good at directing. Turns out he was really good at it. Denzel admits now that he was totally wrong though, and is still hoping to make something like that happen again with Tony Gilroy. Maybe correct the mistake he made over 15 years ago. Sometimes, even time can't heal the wounds of regret over saying no to an important film. Will Smith has spent 20 years regretting his decision not to do The Matrix. Yep, it's hard to imagine now that Keanu Reeves wasn't the first choice for Neo. In fact, there were a number of actors who were approached for the role, including Smith and even Brad Pitt. But it looks like Smith just didn't have enough faith in the movie and turned down the starring role. He recalled meeting with directors Lily and Lana Wachowski, but struggled to understand the ideas behind the film, like the bullet time and the slow-mo effect that Neo mastered in the film. Smith rejected the part to star in another movie, Wild Wild West, which is now known as Smith's most infamous flop. The iRobot actor did argue, though, that he wouldn't have been as good in the role as Reeves. Where Keanu and Lawrence Fishburne were perfect in the film, Smith feels he definitely would have messed it up and ruined the movie for everyone. He jokes that he did us all a favor, so thanks, I guess. While actors like Will Smith and Denzel Washington were turning down roles over the nervousness of a new director, Hunger Games actress Jennifer Lawrence walked away after being cast in the Rosie Project after her salary negotiations went south. Lawrence was willing to drop her usual fee, like the $20 million she got for doing Passengers, for the chance to work with Oscar-nominated director Richard Linklater. But her long and tiresome salary negotiation battle with Sony Pictures chairman Tom Rothman proved to be utterly futile. It really sounds like she was practicing what she preached in her essay she wrote for Lena Dunham's newsletter. about the gender wage gap. Talking about fighting over millions of dollars and making herself heard among loud male co-stars in her essay, she was probably referencing the Rosie Project. Well, you know how it is for Jennifer Lawrence. She was never going to settle for anything less than what her male co-workers were being paid. While Jennifer was advocating for better, if not equal pay, stars like Zendaya had their own moral dilemmas going on. She was initially cast in the Lifetime TV movie, Aaliyah, Princess of R&B, but she decided to opt out of the project. After the film was announced, there were several reports that Aaliyah's family had reservations about the project. According to one of the cousins, Jomo Hankerson, the network never reached out to them about making the movie. Zendaya, on the other hand, claims that she tried to connect with the family because there were multiple complications with the music rights. She tried her best to reach out on her own by writing a letter, but was unable to do so, and hence didn't feel it was morally right to continue with the project. Now, unlike a lot of actors on this list, one particular Hollywood A-lister had no regrets about turning down a popular role at the peak of her career. Rachel McAdams opened up about refusing to do The Devil Wears Prada since she decided to take a break from acting following the massive success of her films The Notebook and Mean Girls. Instead of taking on the role of Andy Sachs, who might have worn pink on Wednesdays, McAdams left for her native homeland, Canada, to take a 2-year break from acting and Hollywood. She implied that she needed to do this for her mental health, and hence had to say no to a number of high-profile films, including the Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep number. The actress felt really guilty at the time for not capitalizing on opportunities that came knocking on her door, because she knew how lucky and privileged she was to even get them in the first place. But she also needed to stay sane and put her foot down. Of course, the execs behind The Devil Wears Prada weren't too happy about the situation. Director David Frankel clarified that the studio was set on casting McAdams and offered the role to her 3 times. While the studio was determined to have her do the role of Andy, McAdams was just as determined not to do it. The About-Time actress may have said no due to mental health concerns, but did you ever think someone would turn down a role just because they thought the movie was too evil? Well, Michelle Pfeiffer did. She turned down the wildly popular film, The Silence of the Lambs, because she was very uncomfortable with its storyline. Pfeiffer was the first choice for the role of the infamous FBI agent, Clarice Starling, in the 1991 horror classic. She claims that she was trepidatious, or in other words, she was nervous, considering how much evil there was in the film. Her only regret, though, comes from missing out on the opportunity to work on another film with Jonathan Demme. Had she said yes, the film would have marked a reunion for the actress and director, since the pair had famously worked together for 3 years on the comedy Married to the Mob. Pfeiffer says passing on the part of Clarice was one of the biggest professional regrets of her career, since she never got to work with Demme again, as he passed away in 2017. Now, since she didn't quite like the message of the movie, the role ultimately went to Jodie Foster, who eventually won an Oscar for the part. Missing out on a potential Oscar and the chance to work with a beloved friend? That's definitely got to hurt, right? So, from Michelle Pfeiffer turning down The Silence of the Lambs for being too evil to Will Ferrell refusing to make Elf 2 because the script wasn't good enough, these were the controversial reasons for which actors refused major roles.